Welcome to the Experience Annex podcast, episode number 13. The title of this episode is One Thing My Father Taught Me About Generosity. In this podcast, I share with you the lesson I learned about generosity, not from any other person, but my father. Life is full of experiences, and it's good you learn from the experience of others. I'm Paul Uduk, the creator of BWC Squared, which stands for Book Writing Clinic and Book Writers Club, where I show friends like you how to convert your ideas into books, blog posts, podcasts, YouTube channels, and other forms of intellectual properties. I'm also the creator of IBMC, Internet Business Mastery Course, where I show aspiring internet entrepreneurs how to succeed at scale online. If I may also add, I'm also the creator of OCNA, Online Course Creators Community for newbies and advanced beginners, with over 12,000 members from all over the world. One thing about most fathers is that you don't get to play with them, especially when they're the disciplinarian types. My father was a teacher and a strict disciplinarian. He was the type that believed in the dictum that says, spare the rod and spoil the child. So I didn't really get to play ball or go on a bike ride, jump and laugh with my father. By a trick of fate, by the time I was through with university, my dad was taken ill. My dad had taken ill and never fully recovered until he passed away. But one day, before he died, my dad surprised me. He said, "Paul, sit down. Let me teach you about generosity." But before I share with you what my father taught me, this is a brief about my father. My father was a teacher, as I mentioned. He was not just an ordinary teacher. He was a headmaster. Next to bank managers, teachers were the most respected people in society then. My father had what was referred to as higher elementary in those days. That was in the early 50s. Higher elementary was probably the equivalent of West African Examination Council certificate. But there is a huge difference. My dad was taught by the white man. They inculcated in him a sense of duty, hard work, and community. There were hardly other teachers of his caliber that I knew. My father excelled in agriculture and won awards. His barn was full of assorted yams, pumpkins, cocoyam, and other crops. Whenever agricultural exhibitions were held in the catchment area of the province, district, or division, my father invariably came out on top. I vividly remember some of his exhibits that were bigger, taller, and fatter than me then. Some were so big they had to be carried by hand-pushed trucks. Teachers in surrounding schools trooped in to learn from the magician, my father. My father was as straight as an arrow when it came to integrity. All the relief materials during the Civil War, amounting to thousands or millions of naira, if you like, were entrusted to my father. Funnily, even as we were starving to death, he never took a pin, even a tin of sardine. I guessed he believed we were not refugees because the material were for refugees. I hated him then on that score. I was tiny and always hungry. However, when I hear government people talk about corruption today, I remember my father with pride, and I smile. My father was generous to a fault. Needless to say, he trained all his siblings. They call him senior. None ever called him by his given name. In church matters, he never came second. He gave the highest donation of 100 guineas. I'm sure you never heard about this. The equivalent of about 10 million naira in today's money, when the Catholic cathedral in my village was being erected in the early 60s. For that donation, the Catholic pontiff, Pope John 23rd, awarded him a papal certificate. Or is it papal certificate? He gave numerous scholarships to indigent students or indigent pupils wherever he went. However, my father never schemed for recognition. One thing bothered me. My father never went to university, unlike most of his peers and contemporaries, and even his juniors. One day, I took my father to task. I asked him why he didn't go to university and mentioned the names of his contemporaries and juniors alike that went. The answer my father gave me stunned me and set alarm bells in my head, mind, and heart. My father said he never went to university because he was never nominated by the Catholic Church. It was unbelievable. This was a man that was awarded a papal certificate for his contribution to the growth of the Catholic Church. So why didn't the church nominate him to go to university? I further asked my father. My father dropped a bombshell. He said, the church does not like people who tell the truth. I've held my father's assertion about the church, especially the Catholic Church, as a gospel truth ever since, but I remain a Catholic. By a stroke of luck, I got employed by one of the federal government agencies in the country upon graduation from university. The agency was set up by the World Bank in cooperation with the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, FAO, and the federal government of Nigeria. It was one of the best run federal agencies in the country. The pay was one of the best, much better than commercial banks then. I was in my game. I'd been blessed. I took off where my father left off when it came to generosity. I ensured the entire clan, the entire Uduk clan was fed. I ensured I put all my cousins on my payroll. I extended a hand of help to my siblings. At the height of my innocence, my father pulled me aside one day and taught me a lesson. He said to me, almost in passing, if they gave medals for all acts of generosity, there would be no place in my breast for medals. My father never said a word on the subject again until he breathed his last. At about the same time, I read a quotation from Machiavelli, which said, if you earn a reputation for generosity, you will come to grief. This is the end of the episode. Stay focused. Be mindful of unbridled generosity. Choose the benefactors of your generosity carefully. Until the next episode, keep striving, keep giving, and be wise.